Alright. Before everyone comes to the conclusion that I'm trying to copy Urinating Tree, in my defense, I posted this poll over 8 days ago asking you all which team I should do a video on first, as an overwhelming percentage of you decided on Pittsburgh. It makes sense really, as the Penguins recently snapped their longtime playoff streak of 16 seasons. Just to put it into perspective, some of you watching may not have even been born the last time Sidney Crosby and the Penguins missed the postseason. In this video, we're going to go over what went wrong in the Burgh, why the team has trended downwards, and what to expect in the future. But before we do, if you'd like to support me and stock up on some NHL gear, use my link and head on over to Fanatics today. Link will be down below. And with that, here is why the Pittsburgh Penguins have turned into a dumpster fire. Okay, since Click is one of my all-time favorite movies, we're taking it back in Sandler style. Here to May of 2018. The Penguins are down 3-2 to the Washington Capitals. And in overtime fashion, the Caps pull off a series victory due to Evgeny Kuznetsov getting one past Matt Murray. As the Birdman did Birdman things and sullied, the realization had finally set in that for the first time in the Crosby-Ovechkin era, the Capitals would be victorious this time. And sadly, this would be the last time the team would win a single playoff series before being eliminated. From then on, it was the same song and dance. The Penguins would somehow end up in the playoff picture and get knocked out faster than fans could say buckle up baby. Except for last postseason. The NHL world witnessed something different from the Penguins that it hadn't witnessed in a while. Postseason resiliency. Yes, the team witnessed its captain getting injured and missing games. Casey DeSmith and Tristan Jarry were both unavailable at times, prompting Louis Domingue to take the reins in net. And they still managed to take the Rangers to Game 7. And in overtime, mind you. While this may not seem like a huge deal, initially, the fact that the Rangers advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals signifies that they were a challenging team to face for the Pens. So what really went so terribly wrong between then and now? Well, to really cover all bases, the catalyst for the team's downfall had already happened. You're probably envisioning his face as I say these words. Yes, the hiring of GM Ron Hextall, which officially happened in 2021. And while a lot of Pens fans, including myself, were tired of former GM Jim Rutherford's trigger-happy antics, well, let's just say they were missed the further Hextall's tenure went. Firstly, to start things off, Hextall decided to bring Jeff Carter into the fold for his first real move. Carter, who had previous ties with Hextall from his days in LA, was an aging veteran who did have a lot of experience to offer. So the playoffs come and go, the Penguins lose to the Islanders, and the Seattle expansion draft commences. It was right here that Hextall made a grave mistake. Hextall dealt Jared McCann to Toronto. Why was that such a mistake, you ask? Well, last season, for instance, while the Penguins were struggling to find depth within their top six, McCann was living his best life in Seattle, scoring 40 goals. Yes, I wish I was making this up. But anyways, the mediocrity continued, as the next decision from the GM was to let Brandon Tanev also go to the Kraken in the official drafts. And again, he protected Carter. And this time, Kasperi Kapanen as well. He protected Kapanen and Carter. And as a belated Christmas present to Penguins fans in 2022, Hextall decided to sign Carter to a 2-year deal in January, valued at $6.25 million. While Carter did look like a good addition at first, the forward quickly began receiving the brunt of fans' criticism, and for good reason. According to Trib Live, for example, the Penguins were outscored 46-30 when Carter was on the ice at even strength. And aside from trading for and signing for Rickard Rakell and keeping the trio together, the GM's further moves were questionable at best. Trading Mike Matheson for Jeff Petrie, re-signing Kapanen, trading Teddy Bluger, the list goes on. And even more puzzling was Hextall's last trade deadline. One would think he would have sought out some youth perhaps, considering that his team was the oldest league-wide last campaign. The Jeff Carter line was abysmal at best. Inserting some decent help would have been key. A top-pairing D-man, heck, even a goaltender would have been beneficial. Instead, his answer to fix the Penguins' consistency was Mikael Granlund. Well, yes, Granlund did have 3 60-point seasons. Deciding to seek out his services over all of the other potential acquisitions is mind-boggling to me. Sure, he and Jason Zucker had chemistry back in Minnesota, but still, Hextall seemed to be enticed by the forward's versatility and defensive mindset. However, offensively anyways, he didn't exactly mesh well with the new system, as Granlund only recorded 5 points throughout his 21 games played in the Burgh. Interestingly, according to an article from Trib Live, Hextall claimed that Granlund was a, quote, coveted player, end quote, over the last several NHL trade deadlines. And also, from the source, Hextall was considering trading for defenseman Jacob Chikrin, a two-way defender that's potent on the power play. Instead, he lost out to Ottawa on that one. After the trade deadline, the Pens went on a massive skid, while sporting a 9-11-1 record post-deadline. And to top it all off, the crucial game for the Penguins to win, in order to have a fighting chance at securing a wildcard position, was against Chicago, a team without Patrick Kane that finished 30th place on the season. By this time, the roster was saturated with AHL talent instead of NHL players. But just like that, they couldn't solve Peter Mrazek after having literally 40 shots on goal. They walked away with a 5-2 loss. Well, most of us know what happened after this blunder. GM Ron Hextall and President of Hockey Ops Brian Burch were canned almost immediately after the team lost to Columbus in the season's finale. And it was almost suddenly, like the snow melted in Pittsburgh conceptually, and things started to look alive again. Okay, I've obviously seen Chronicles of Narnia one too many times, but you get my points. It felt like a weight was lifted off of the city, and fans could finally start to breathe again. Even though we did cover Hextall's most questionable moves, how did they really break the team and cause them to fall so far downward? So obviously the whole Jeff Carter issue was at the top of the list, and the fact that Hextall decided to give the forward a full no move clause made it even worse. However, one of the most obvious solutions was never explored, just simply to scratch the veteran. Sources such as The Hockey News and Pittsburgh Hockey Now both concluded that head coach Mike Sullivan should have benched Carter at some point in time. Ryan Poehling was a viable replacement towards the latter part of the season. However, nothing was done. Instead, Hextall defended Carter at times. During a February presser, the GM was still in denial. I think Jeff has done some good things, Hextall says. And I think I said it last time, I think there's times we can play better than he's played, but he's a big face-off guy for us, he's a penalty killer for us, and he fills a role. Besides the fact that the team is old, another issue that Josh Yeo from The Athletic pointed out was that they need more size. Yeo went on to conclude that the team was severely lacking a net front presence that has the size and strength to battle for position. And really, if you look at size in comparison, the Pens rank 29th in weight and 22nd in height. However, when you also tack on that they're the oldest team with an average age of 30, it gets even worse. Now that the Penguins have dispersed and cleaned out their lockers and are enjoying their lengthy offseason, what now? Well, for starters, the Pens are in search of a new GM to fill the vacant role. Interestingly, rumors have circulated around the hockey world that Fenway Sports Group, the organization that owns the team, is prepared to hand current Toronto GM Kyle Dubas a blank check if he decides to come to the Steel City. Knowing that the GM's contract is set to expire shortly, this could very well be a possibility if he's not extended. Other than Dubas, the frontrunner seems to be former Sabres GM Jason Botterill. Botterill has previous ties with the team, as he was the assistant GM and an interim until Jim Rutherford came to the Burgh. While he did make some questionable moves while in Saberland, the move he definitely got right was trading for center Tage Thompson, who has become one of the team's top players on the roster. Hopefully, the Pens will have hired on a GM by the time this year's entry draft commences, along with free agency. Not only do they have a first-round selection on the horizon, but also plenty of UFAs to address. For starters, netminder Tristan Jarry's 3-year, $10.5 million deal is coming to a close. Jarry, who faced injuries off and on last campaign, was inconsistent for his club at best. After sporting a below .900 save percentage at times, Jarry managed to bring the stat up to basically scream mediocre. And I mean that because if we do go over to Money Puck, the goaltender had a negative .01 save above expected percentage, and therefore it's been just that. If we compare his previous stats outside of the insanely small 2-in-1 game sample sizes years back, this was his worst season as far as goals against was concerned, as he finished with a 2.90. Therefore, it would make sense if the organization decided to move on from the former second-round selection. Also, a decently important name is Jason Zucker. Interestingly, according to NHL insider Frank Saravalli, the Penguins were also open to trading Zucker along with some high picks for Vancouver's own JT Miller. However, obviously that didn't come to fruition, but what that does tell us is that Zucker will likely not be staying. The forward had a redemption arc type season in which he managed to record 27 goals in 78 games played and finished with 48 points. Even though he does have a modified no trade clause on his deal, it'll be interesting to see if his rights are dealt to an interested team in exchange for viable assets. And lastly, we have longtime defenseman Brian Dumoulin. While he's never been the most offensive D-man out there, Dumoulin did set a career high in points with 25 last campaign. Outside of that, he also had a negative 2.1 goals above expected at even strength, which was a team worst amongst D-men. Also, he ranked third in defensive zone giveaways under Chris Letang and Marcus Pettersson. However, keep in mind he did play around 4 less minutes on average than Letang per game. To sum it up, he was relatively inconsistent and will probably be let go by his longtime team this summer. In conclusion, in my opinion, this season was a massive failure on all fronts. While it wouldn't have been so bad if Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin weren't still producing, but in all actuality, they were. Crosby ended up coming in just 7 points shy of 100 and finished 16th league-wide in scoring. Evgeny Malkin wasn't too far behind, as he averaged just over a point per game with 83 in a full season's play. If they had a better suited supporting cast around them, it's hard not to wonder if they would have not only made the playoffs, but won a round or two. Instead, they were forced to watch the team underperform despite their efforts. It'll be interesting to see where things go from here. The team is at a massive crossroads, meaning that they could take the approach that Chicago did a few years back, try and find assets to complement their aging core. But as we all know, that didn't exactly work out for the Hawks. But every situation is different. On the other hand, they could try and start softly rebuilding and replenishing the roster for the future. Either way, Pens fans, and myself included, will be savoring the remaining games we get to see the Big Three play in. Hope you all enjoyed the analysis. If you'd like to support me and my work, you can do so by joining my Patreon for some perks. Benefits include video previews, unseen channel analytics, and monthly shoutouts from yours truly. If monthly support isn't your thing, you can buy me a coffee or support me by shopping with Fanatics. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.